I am privileged to introduce the first panelist of our panel discussion, the co-founder and the principal architect at Cadence Architects, with a distinguished background in architecture and interior design, with more than 15 years of experience across various scales and typologies. He has led a number of successful projects, and with his expertise, he has done several national and international projects. He actively promotes design dialogues and deliberations, contributing to the global and local connect of Cadence and fostering the studio's vision of projective practice. I take this privilege to call upon architect Smaran Malesh. Our next panelist is an accomplished architect and a visual artist renowned for his groundbreaking work in organic spaces that harmoniously merge human creation and the natural environment. Currently, he's an associate architect at Ant Studio. He brings together ancestral knowledge and modern technology in his designs. His pioneering projects, which combine AI imaging software, have earned global acclaim with features in prestigious design publications and media outlets worldwide. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome architect Manas Bhatia. I'm privileged to call our next panelist, the principal designer and founder, SDEG, is a highly accomplished architect with a renowned multidisciplinary design practice based in Bangalore. With a decade of experience, architect Sujit has played a pivotal role in shaping the firm's diverse portfolio, spanning private homes, mass housing, corporate offices, and recreational facilities. His formative years at Zaha Hadid Architects in London have deeply influenced his design philosophy. Beyond his architectural practice, architect Sujit actively engages in architectural education, serving as a design critique, lecturer, and contributor to architectural forums and design schools. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome architect Sujit Nair. And finally, I am architect Suhita Jhala. I'll be the moderator for this panel discussion. So today's topic, we are discussing about AI. I mean artificial intelligence, and its impact, and what role it plays in architecture. So let me start with you, Architect Smaran Mallesh. We are talking about the advancements in AI. And you talk more about relevance of AI in your projects. You know, you talk about futuristic designs, the use of AI in modern architecture, several other things what we see in your projects. So what is your take like on whether the future advancements in AI will play a role in the future of design evolution?
Hi, everybody, and thank you so much for having me here. So firstly, I have to make this really clear. I am still sitting on the fence in terms of what AI will do, and I know that what's entailed in your question is to see what the positive outcomes of AI might be, and I'm hoping that through this discussion amongst the four of us, we could tease out, what our apprehensions and anxieties are also about it. But I think the writing's on the wall. AI is here to stay. It is going to pervade our lives, not only through design, but through every possible way. But the question is the sort of political impact it has on design, which is I'm sort of deeply interested in. And what I really mean by that is I think it will sort of democratize the space of design in a very interesting way, because it is going to enable the felicitation of data that's available for everybody. So what's interesting about what potentially AI could do is that it's going to create a level playing field for somebody who's just gotten into the business of design to larger conglomerates of firms which otherwise would have had access to a lot of data just through the number of years of experience and collective knowledge they've put in. So what's really interesting with AI is that it will short circuit that whole relationship between the designer and all the data available out there to actually start having meaningful design outcomes. So the political implication of AI in terms of how it can sort of democratize the process of design, I think is very interesting. And I see a huge potential in that happening.
Now, my next question is to Architect Sujit. Now, we have heard Smaran telling us about the possibilities of AI and, its relevance in architecture. Now, what do you think will be the challenges when we are talking about the further advancements of AI in terms of evolution of design? So what could be the challenges in the same context?
Well, just to pick up what he was saying on democratization of this tool, what that also does is then you have to kind of put in this question of what happens to the knowledgeable creative individual. So that's where a little bit of cynicism creeps in, because by putting these tools in everyone's hands, because what you really need is intuition then, and you have to be a little smart to sort of be out there and create using AI. But I'm not then sure what then happens in terms of these outcomes. There's an explosion of these images, and so I'm a little unsure of what happens then. But on the positive side, I just think that, just to take a step before that, I think we have to put in place what AI would really mean for design itself. There's data, and then there's creation. So as far as sieving through data and using tools to actually simplify tasks, I think AI has terrific potential. And it has terrific potential as far as, this sort of whole idea of sketching, speculation, conceptualization, quick mood boarding and so on. It just makes the whole process very simple. But having said that, you must understand that the whole idea of AI and the fact that it's derived from tons of data lying somewhere, it means that there's no filter. And it's going through layers and layers of information. So the learning is not necessarily smart. It's just sort of picking what it thinks is right. So in that process, there's a possibility of plagiarism, for example, what happens to copyright issues, and so on. So those are the sort of gray areas as far as this is concerned, but I mean, this is very early. AI is young, there's a long way to go for it. There was the same excitement when parametricism was in play. This was about 10, 20 years ago when I was doing my master's. And not that it doesn't exist now, but it sort of, is not spoken of in the same vein. So yeah, it's a great tool, but it's still young. So yeah, I'll leave it at that, yeah.
Can we have one more hand mic? Yes, so the same question which I have put to Smaran. The further advancements in AI, how are they going to affect the future?
See, so technology has been improving for like many years now. Even if we take a pen that we used to make designs, that was a technology. Then we came into college, we had those set squares and every other paraphernalia that we bought, that was technology. Then came AutoCAD and other 3D softwares. So these all technologies have essentially helped the creators to enhance the design process, and they have aided the designers to also unleash their creativity. As Sujit said, that when parametrics came into picture, I am sure a lot of people must have rebelled back then against parametric systems, because they would be like that, the computer is making the design, so where will the humans go? So AI brings the same question now, and it is much more powerful than any other system that we have experienced. So as far as the future of AI is concerned, I think it opens a lot of possibilities. Since it works on large data sets, then automating repetitive tasks which we were achieving through parametrics, now, combine that with AI. So that is one solution. Then data-driven design, so, you submit your parameters as far as heating is concerned of the house or the lighting is concerned of the house. Any parameter which you may have in the design process, AI will take that into consideration and will generate the most optimum solution. And then it is also empowering designers to be more artistic and, to explore certain boundaries which were there. Like a person who is not well adept with other softwares, and they still want to create something which is out of the box. So the software itself becomes a problem there, not the design thought. Maybe the architect is a brilliant architect, he has a great concept in his mind, but they are essentially not able to deliver that. So AI comes there to help. So I think the future of design will be very interesting by incorporating AI into the overall design process.
But I think if you have to play devil's advocate, just to see things from the other side, and I think there are a lot of students here, and there are a lot of people running their own offices, and I think we were probably the last batch from our college who drafted by hand before people took to CAD, and I think the very act of drawing, wherein you use a pencil and then you apply pressure depending on the material that you're actually imagining, made a tactile connection for you with that material. So if you had to draw concrete, you would press the pencil harder and you would draw it. And if you had to draw something that was light and ephemeral, you would use another pencil and your hand would, it would draw it in a very light way. And actually that act of drawing was also an act of making a connection, a deep sort of haptic connection. Albeit imaginary, there was a physical act where you were attempting to make that connection. And I think even in offices, when you're making a physical model, and I think Sendil spoke about it beautifully a couple of times, the very act of getting into an accident with a model, triggers a new way of thinking. Just like how when there's rainwater trickling through the rocks, you don't know what path it's going to take. It sets you off on a process that is something that was uncharted before. But it is the physical act. It's the physical connection you're making with that material, and there's a material reality to the way you think. And I think one of the challenges of AI or any of these virtual ways of thinking is that material detachment that one might have. And then you spiral away into these world of visuals that, that one could lose control and lose their way and completely have a disconnected way of looking at the world, because end of the day, architecture is a physical manifestation of an idea, right? It has to be real. It is something you feel, right? So that, I think, is the only danger. I don't know what the others feel about it, but that's something that I worry about.
No, I have the same. So what AI in some sense allows you to do is also, and this is a little tricky, and this is where it gets a little shaky for me, it's allowing you to design your future. And especially with, the sort of current, the outcomes that you see on the internet and so on, there's something utopian and at the same time dystopian about what you see. The sort of unrealness of that sort of reality that you're expected to understand. And that for me is a bit worrying, because it's not really taking into consideration, what currentness or what reality is. So I think that while it's a great tool for you to envision a future, I also think that it's important that we still look at it as a generative tool and create sort of series of possibilities, but it is not mature enough as yet, except for its sort of data processing side, for it to really be, as real as making a drawing per se, as Maran was touching upon, where this AI sort of exists for me somewhere between that outcome or an artifact or a building, and then that sort of first step when there's nothing. It's trying to occupy that space. So everything about it feels unfinished. So that's my sort of extension to what he was talking about.
Yeah, actually, I also agree with your point that, it's always good to start with a sketch, because that way you are being very honest to what you're thinking in your mind. Like, that is the first, thing to do when you're actually having a thought. But before sketch comes the thought. So AI is just, a tool which is helping you convert that thought directly into images. Like for me, as what I have been using it for. And we are at the stage where we have these text to image tools which are just scratching the surface of what the technology can do in the future. Soon we'll have text to 3D, which is already under development. And then there are these softwares which, are working like plugins. So you don't have to go through the entire rendering process which people have been doing, by putting the model into Lumion and everything. Now they can generate these renders within seconds. So I think as far as we are not being controlled by what AI is giving it to us, and we are able to control the technology, I think that is the key point here. Same with parametrics, we cannot just go by what the software is giving, because even if we can fabricate it, the designer is not itself in control. So I think with AI also we have to see whether we can actually control the chaos. Yeah, that's what I would like.
Right. To add to that, do you think, in relevance to architecture, AI is having more possibilities or more challenges?
Oh, no,
Because we are talking on a positive note. So do you think specifically in architecture or in design, because AI has advanced in healthcare, cybersecurity, and many other fields. So when we come to architecture, art, or design, because even in art we have art generators through AI,
Yep.
then in design, architecture. So do you think there are more possibilities or more challenges as we go about the future advancements?
Well, if you look at design in the sort of truest philosophical sense as an act of creation, I think AI is a terrific tool, because it's allowing you to think swiftly. It's allowing you to sort of react with just a few prompts And that's where the human intervention is. All you have to think about is setting up the right kind of text
Right.
for you to be able to quickly mood board,
Right.
make very kind of tactful presentations to clients. We're attempting some exercise in the office to actually develop the plan of an apartment building with an AI tool. So it's just, I'm not saying we're successful with it, but it's a new approach to design now. And it's hard to say because, it's all right for it to stay experimental because you're only generating or you're only using it as a generative tool. And in that sense, I think it's a terrific opportunity.
Right.
If you're only thinking about it as a speculative opportunity.
Right.
And there are great possibilities there, and why not? And I think architects should sort of adopt it, test it, because it's very simple to use. Unlike parametrics, you don't have to understand code, you don't have to understand hierarchies and relationships between geometries and so on. This is fairly quick, and and if you go out there, there are now extensions to Adobe and SketchUp and AutoCAD, and all of them, everyone sort of developed extensions just for trying out. Everything's in the beta stage. So since you can actually join that bandwagon right now, it's a movement that's current. And it's easy for everyone to sort of hop in and then just sort of experiment with it. So I think it's a great opportunity. It's really the extension to that conversation where it's a little gray, and I don't want to sort of harp on it too much, is really what happens to it when you're thinking of a physicality to it. You can prototype, you can do all of that. There will be a time when I feel it'll get really powerful if you can generate a 3D model out of, let's say, a Mid-Journey tool. That'll be a great opportunity, because now what it's doing, it's giving you a 2D manifestation of a 3D image. Yes. Right? So it'll get there soon. And when that happens, that'll be a terrific opportunity. Then you can actually build something out of it, maybe.
So, Architect Smaran, would you like to add to what Sujit has said? Like, will there be more possibilities or more challenges?
No, I think there will be possibilities and challenges as we go along. But I think the point, the overarching idea here is the question of authorship, right? So, if we believe that AI is going to take authorship, wherein the sort of the human contribution then plays second fiddle, then I don't think that's the way to go. I think it's important that authorship is with people, their sensibilities, and their critical understanding of culture and context. And it's very difficult to understand, for AI to understand emotion. It's very difficult for it to understand mood and ambience, and a lot of those things that cannot be quantified as data. For example, a project like the Jewish Museum that captures the pain of the Jews and the suffering cannot be quantified by data, right? So you do need a sharp mind to actually make a building that evokes a certain feeling, right? So yes, of course, it can have a great skin, which then AI can help resolve. It can give lots of data about the site, about the city, about the users, which you can use. You can do all of those things. You can present the whole project in 3D visualization through AI, where the city maybe imagines it. But I think the soul of the project, the heart of the project is really the translation of that emotion. And that authorship should lie with an architect. And I think then you can look at AI and all of those to really look at how you can then sort of collate all of those to go further.
Just to sort of build on that, I just think that there's this idea of specifically about architecture, and we talk about timelessness. That's something that AI will not address immediately. There's something. It is so. We live in a time where the immediacy of everything has become important, right? We want, consumption at rapid pace. We are on Insta Reels. We are looking at, maybe about 1,500 images a day. I think, all of us are in some way. And this is something that's sort of catering to that, and it's responding to that urge and to our time. And if you look at architecture and the way we've been conditioned to think about architecture, and a beautiful piece of work and it has to sort of stand through the test of time. There's some sort of disconnect the way we talk about AI and the sort of more the real life of architecture. So that's where I think there's it almost feels like an old school conversation versus something that's very sort of Gen Z. Yeah. So I think that's where this debate will sort of lie for some time.
And I think the counterpoint to immediacy, and I know Manas spoke about how in terms of production, we have 3D rendering machines going on for days, and that's cut short in seconds. But I also think the counterpoint to that is deliberation of an idea sometimes needs slowness. And slowness is the antithesis of something immediate. And I think slowness, like how Milan Kundera talks about it, right? Slowness brings about a lot of good things, And I think the danger with AI, like you were saying on Instagram, before you like or dislike or move to the next image, you give it 1 second, and there is this constant paranoia to just move your finger to see the next thing, and it's endless. But I think what's in danger also is that idea of slowness and what good comes out of it.
Yes, so on this note, I would also like to ask, so before going to the next question, we had some views about AI from different people as to what everybody thinks about AI. So let's see that first, and then I'll go about my next question. So let's have the AV, please.
AI, if it saves time, it is very good. So, and it should. Those time has to be spent for more personal relationship. If you miss out that part, then AI is no use.
Yeah, so AI might sound like tool or an exciting tool that is going to change our lives and make our lives easier. But there are a lot of threats that I foresee with AI, because I am seeing people's as simple as small a tool as ChatGPT that people are using now. The threats are that now students are also depending on people. If I had to frame a sentence before, I had to think, I have to type it and see if it sounds right to me or not. Now people are going to think, so their cognitive skills are for threat, because and if you implement this in something like architecture, a field like architecture, interior design, and you are going to be dependent, and the skill set, the human skill set is going to deplete over the period of, I would say, if you start implementing now, maybe it's the next decade or something, you will see that human beings are lesser knowledgeable, less intelligent than they are today. So those are the threats I think of it.
I don't like robots to serve me in a restaurant situation. I won't go to that restaurant. Any robots around that type of industry, I'm not interested.
Thank you.
AI, artificial intelligence. See, there are two parts on the coin. One is good and one is it's not good. AI definitely it can reduce the work of a human, but at the same time, when it comes to construction industry, AI can't be replaced with any engineer or architect or interior designer. Thank you.
Basically, when we are talking about artificial intelligence, we generally get two softwares into our mind. One is Metaverse, one is ChatGPT. So basically, I am an academician. So in my point of view, ChatGPT is something which is a boon to the academia. At the same time, people are misusing it, especially if you want to prepare a report. Just you put in the ChatGPT, you will get everything, without any kind of plagiarism. At the same time, Metaverse is there. So that's something which is helpful for the client, where you keep some, lens and then you walk around, you can feel the space without going to the site itself. But the only thing is, if it is not being, utilized properly in a good manner, it would be misused. And one day it may harm your profession also. that means that it needs to be handled by a proper person in a proper way, or else it will dilute the profession, or it will endanger the profession in one or the other way. That's all. Thank you.
సో మెయిన్ ఆర్టిఫిషియల్ ఇంటెలిజెన్స్ అంటే ఓకే, టెక్నాలజీని మనం ఎంతవరకు కావాలో అంతవరకు అందిపించుకోవడంలో తప్పలేదు. బట్ టెక్నాలజీలో ఏదైనా ప్రోగ్రాంలో కానీ ఎక్కడైనా డిఫాల్ట్ వచ్చినప్పుడు దాన్ని ఎర్రర్ని ఉన్నప్పుడు అది వేరేలా ఫంక్షనింగ్ అయిందనుకోండి, దానివల్ల రెగ్యులర్గా మనకి ఏదైతే బెనిఫిట్ అవుతుందో దానికి తీరా నష్టం జరగచ్చు.
Artificial intelligence is needed. Why? Because thinly populated areas like European or Australian countries, they definitely need, but not like India, China or something.
So about AI, I don't think it's making things better than they're actually. It's making worse, in my opinion, because it doesn't give you a freedom to think. Your creativity level goes down. Your ability to think upon one aspect, it's very miserable in these days. So it's better to limit the usage of something which is degrading yourself.
So we had couple of views. Sorry for the audio. I think most of the audio wasn't heard. But then I'll shortly describe what their views were. So we had a few people, architects, interior designers, people from business profession, students, have their views on artificial intelligence. So now we had quite a positive reaction to the use of AI in our fields, and the negative as well. So here, most of them were talking about AI is helping them make their work easier. Few of them has, they have said that AI is destroying their creativity. So on that note, let me ask you, Architect Smaran Mallesh, AI, does it replace creativity, or it is enhancing creativity and innovation?
Yeah, I think we spoke about this, but I think what's going to happen is, in my opinion, with time, I think mediocrity in design is going to be seriously challenged. I think if somebody's worried that they're going to lose their job or AI is going to take over, if it really happens, it's going to happen with the stuff that is mediocre, because if you have a practice or you have a cultivated practice that has a strong sensibility, a strong philosophy, a strong technique in terms of how you're making things, and you understand material, and there's something that you built over the years, I think it'll take a lot of time to, for that sort of creativity to be sort of toppled by AI. But I think what's really in danger and what's in crisis is really going to be the mediocre stuff, which is what we are unfortunately surrounded by. And there is a possibility of that getting uprooted.
So Manas, what's your take on whether AI is going to replace architecture, or AI's, and AI would enhance the creativity and innovation, or will it replace creativity?
See, so that was a very good point that you said, Smaran. Mediocre designs will take a hit. It's like you have a superpower now that can create the designs. So where is the real challenge now? The challenge is not to create the designs. The challenge is to create that one exceptional design, which actually, is completely different from the set of hundreds and thousands of images which the AI is giving to you. Even, when I am sitting at my laptop and I am going through the AI tools, it is generating hundreds of images, and which actually will make you confused whether, which one to pick, which one is the best solution. So now actually it becomes difficult for designers to, come out and be actually the best version of themselves, because half of the things, if the technology is taking care of, then there is still the other half, which can make you, either you'll be a sheep in the crowd or you will just outshine. So I think it's very speculative, but people who are actually very creative and, people who are actually good designers will be able to use this technology and become better versions of themselves. and the others will just be lost in the crowd.
So Sujit, what's your take on this?
I just have a sort of parallel view on this because I was looking at those conversations and they sound very ominous. It sounds like it'll put everybody out of work and so on. And I think there's only the only area where it's likely to take over is where humans are engaged in redundant tasks, where there's repetitiveness. And that's where AI will step in and maybe take over through robotics and so on. But otherwise, what it will do is force us as a race to upskill. And I think there's terrific opportunity there. And if you look at that with optimism, it means that you are basically removing mediocrity at a task level, and then you're sort of shifting an entire race to sort of a slightly superior situation through supervision, for example, and maybe looking at technology very differently. And so there's a whole lot of upskilling happening right there. And I think, people don't talk about that. Anytime there's a new sort of technological intervention, as a race, we are prone to kind of thinking that it's going to take over and so on and so forth. But you only have to look at this as an opportunity, and it's allowing you to, it's an enabler in many ways. So you just have to be discerning about this, nothing else really, So as, for the architecture practice, for example, I mean, it is going to do terrific things, I mean, it'll force a lot of the staff to kind of adopt tools. Otherwise, there's a sense of reluctance for architects. And because it's so simple, it's a lot, easier, right? So I think it's interesting.
Right. So
I think what's interesting is, I think in the 60s and the 70s, photography was like the act of taking a photograph was marking the truth in some sense. It was capturing a fact. And then, of course, when Photoshop came, I think a photograph being a mark of truthness or being the fact was questioned. But I think we understood how photography and Photoshop can work together to get the best possible results. But then again, with deep fake now, the whole idea of a photoshopped image itself again is in crisis of what is really true and what is not. So I think, and if you see over a period of time, what is true and what is untrue, what is fake and what is real, has constantly been changing. And I think as we go ahead with AI, some of these values that we've placed for things are going to be in flux in a very interesting way. So the value attribution we do for anything, all of these questions of who is now being creative might be very different 5 years from today, because you might have to look at creativity itself in a different way. So it's very exciting, and it could go either way. It depends on how one gets ready, adapts it, and then cultivates a mindset to kind of use it.
I also had something I like to add. Like what you mentioned about photography and when Photoshop came, it basically not only aided the photographers edit and replace the images, but it also brought about new artistic explorations. Like photo manipulation was a term which was not there initially, right? But with the advent of a software, new fields started coming in. And there were new artists who were, dealing with photo manipulation and making surreal images. So it basically disrupted a field there. And AI is disrupting every kind of field now, like even the creative industries or other healthcare, traffic management, and even the infrastructure management. So whatever we right now is very speculative, but I think AI is like a very powerful friend, and with the human intuition, and all the emotions that human beings have, and the knowledge of, the traditional knowledge that humans have, as well as the contextual knowledge, all that combined with a powerful tool like AI, I think that can bring about a very good revolution into.
Just digressing a little bit, but there's a wonderful note by a writer called Rick Rubin. He's an American producer, a 9-time Grammy Award winner. And he looks at the universe as this sort of field of ideas. He says, a woodpecker pecking, or, ant sort of building an anthill. All of those are ideas. And ideas are sort of allotted to the world, to the universe. And he says that as humans, we are only manifesting those ideas. And many times, when you see something cutting edge, or you see something, a breakthrough moment in science, or in history, and so on, he says that that idea is sort of manifested at the right moment. And if you miss the bus on that, right, it means that you sort of lost an opportunity. So ideas are afloat somehow, and then you're sort of just these little, we're all conduits to sort of manifest those ideas. And AI is sort of like that, I feel. There's something very, like, it's meant to happen now in that sense. It's a sort of build-up in some way. And it's going to be interesting to see where it's going to go from here. So I think just sort of add to everything else.
So we also have students here. So most of them probably wouldn't know the use of AI latest trends and how it is helping us make our work easier. So Smaran, can you throw some light on the tools and the techniques, present trends of AI, that can help the education field?
I'm not so sure. I think they should stay away from AI. And also, I don't see any students here, so I don't know who we are talking to, but will you make sure you'll tell them if we discuss it? Maybe Manas is better at it because, whatever I know is what I've read in the last few days for this, but I think Midjourney is something that obviously Manas uses a lot, but I also think what's getting really popular now with architects is something called as LookX. And that's something that we also sort of dabbled in the office in the last few days for me to understand what all of this means. And it's very exciting, but it's also really scary because to me it also seems like a really quick shortcut to get to something without students really understanding what it takes to get there otherwise. And I think knowing history and knowing ways of doing things is very important. And one shouldn't bypass that. So I think it's good to go through the rigor of things, not in an old-fashioned way, but just to understand, how our discipline has developed over the years, to really see how they can take advantage of all these new things that are coming our way. So that's what I feel.
There's one more question I would like to bring forth. Is AI answerable to failures? We're talking about AI generating concepts, design process. It is making easier for us to, in terms of data and all of that. AI is helping us a lot. So is AI answerable to failures?
I don't think so. I don't think it's AI works on already established patterns and already established relationships. So the only time, it is not conditioned to think about anomalies. So let's say, for example, you're using it to control vehicular traffic or maybe railway traffic, for example. And if it is, if there's a situation where you have to take a swift, impromptu decision, it's not going to do it. Or 9 times out of 10, it won't do it. It's not smart enough to do that yet. So in such a scenario, you need the human intervention. And if you want to call it failure, so that's maybe one example of how it might fail. So my sort of immediate reaction to that is that I don't think, it's while it sort of simplifies complex problems, and it's able to sort of sieve through bytes and bytes of data and so on, but this is information that already exists. And you must understand that, data and information that exists out there it's not always good data. So when you are actually seeking an outcome, it's basically sort of sieving through anything that it finds. And in that process, it might pick up wrong information, and that's failure. So that's why I spoke of it in the beginning. So it's not necessarily always ethical. And who gauges ethics? It's us, right? So AI is not conditioned to think of ethics, right? So I think that's maybe one way to look at its failure.
Yeah, and also since AI relies on large sets of data, the data may also be wrong. There are also certain biases which I have seen, by using these AI tools. Most of the designs that, if I am not, really actually working on my prompts and not really putting my thought into it, most of the designs, they resemble the work of Zaha Hadid or, other prominent architects. And that is because probably their designs are much more prevalent on the internet. There is much more data about her works or, their works on the internet. So that way also, if we completely rely on AI to give us the optimum solution without any human intervention, I think that result will also be very biased.
So there are many questions, where, whether AI can be used or, whether it is going to be the, boss of the world in the future, or whether AI is going to take over the world, it is going to steal our jobs. So there are many questions that we find in terms of AI. With the time constraints, I would like to quickly wind this off. Will AI be called as an architect now? These are a few questions that we have gathered from different people, so I quickly go through those questions, and then we'll have a quick answers to that, and then we'll wind with a panel discussion. So will AI steal your jobs? Can AI take over the world? Is AI changing the definition of architecture? Will AI be called the architect now? Is AI creative? Is AI motivating or no? So these are some questions that we have received from various people in terms of their views on AI. So keeping all these things in mind, hearing all the information from our panelists, time will decide whether AI is going to give us the positive aspects or the negative aspects, or it is going to provide us more challenges or more possibilities. With this, I conclude the panel discussion for today, and I thank all our panelists for being with us and giving us an insight into what AI can do and what AI is doing in our architecture.
Thank you so much, all the panelists and the moderator. So before the felicitation, I just want to say one announcement. There's going to be a big surprise for all of you, especially for the students. So please be seated. So now I'd like to invite on the stage Architect Geeta Rani, Chairperson IIID Coimbatore Center, to the dais to present the memento to Architect Sparan Mallesh. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. Now I request MC IIID Amravati to the dais and present the memento to Architect Sujit Nair. Thank you. Now I request Architect Aparna Bidalkar. Advising Member IIID Hyderabad Regional Center, to the dais and present the memento to Architect Manas Bhatia. Now, past chairperson, IIID Hyderabad Regional Center to the dais and present the memento to architect Suhita Jala. Sorry. The prize is ready. Closing now.